children. Oh, and we'll also be recording this session. So was anyone here last week for our first session on health? You can do by raise your hands if you were here last week. I see Mikhail. Thanks for coming back. Okay. Okay. And last week was really, really great, right? It was. So, um, it was amazing, and we're looking forward to having an even more amazing session this week. Thank you so much again for being here. I don't know how much time I guess I thank you, but your presence here alone shows a real commitment to tackling some of the most urgent and heartbreaking issues facing our nations, and that is violence and the impact it has on our nation's children. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, right? So I didn't even ask Don if this was okay, but I wanted to share a not so fun fact. Who here is familiar with the Ananda alert? You can raise hands if you are, if you know what the Ananda alert is. No one else knows? I'm seeing a lot of people know, and that's great. So it's a system we use today to find missing children, but it was born out of tragedy. And it was named after Ananda Dean, who was an 11-year-old girl who was abducted and murdered. And that was back in 2008. I was 8 at the time, and I remember. And Ananda's death did shake the nation, and today it reminds us why we must keep talking, why we must keep acting, and why we need to keep protecting our children. In the past few weeks, we've witnessed chilling examples of how violence continues to scar our society. The tragic murder of Kelsey, she was just 10 years old, and her life was brutally, gruesomely, and senselessly taken. And Kelsey and all other children who are victims of violence or have been impacted by violence, they're not just headlines, they're children. They're real people who have real family and very real friends. And so today's conversation is a serious one, but I think learning the stats will help us develop a clear way to move forward. We have an opportunity throughout the session to imagine what a better Jamaica is. And I want if you guys can type in the comments what a better Jamaica would look like to you. But that's what we're here to really discuss today. And it's a space that we're providing conversation to happen. So I'm asking that we listen and we learn and we push for change that ensures that every Jamaican child can grow up in a country where they feel safe, where they feel protected and secure, and there's no fear. So once again, thank you for joining us. We have some amazing experts coming to talk to us and show us what the stats have been saying. We have a legendary lineup, actually. We'll be hearing from Mr. Richard Troop, who is the Director of School Safety and Security at the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information. We also have Miss Monique Hutchinson, who is the Senior Registration Officer at the Child Protection and Family Services Agency, CPFSA. And we also have Tiffany Case, who is the Child Diversion Officer at the Ministry of Justice, MOJ. So I want to get right into it because we started late. So we won't delay. Our first order of business is showing Jayan's Youth Deserve Better video. This is essentially a data snapshot which gives a very brief overview of the recent statistics and national trends relating to child abuse, peer violence, and children's exposure to violence. So I'm going to invite a member of my team to share.
One in three Jamaican youth has experienced violence during their childhood. These scars don't just fade, they shape lives.
Among our young men, 75% reported carrying a weapon within the past year. For too many of us, survival feels like a battle.
In 2020, 16% of Jamaica's murder victims were between the ages of 15 and 24 years old. Young people who should be going to school and building blocks to create a successful life. And heartbreakingly, 4 out of every 10 people who are arrested for murder are young men in this same age category.
Nearly a quarter of our young women and 11% of our young men have experienced sexual violence as children, leaving them mentally and physically scarred for life.
Our youth are surrounded by the depressing realities of violence that rob them of their opportunity to see their full potential.
But the story isn't over. Together, we can rewrite it. Because our youth deserve better.
Thank you, Dashawn, for presenting that. And I think we can all agree that our youth do deserve better. Please put your hand up if you agree with that or type in the comments, but we do. And I'm really happy to be moderating today. I'm really happy that we have the opportunity today to talk about the statistics of, violence specifically in children and among children and meet it out to children. It's a conversation that needs to be had. It hasn't. Someone's talking. So yes, it's a conversation that we need to have. It's something that happens over and over and over again. And until we sit and properly discuss what's going on, we can't really form, solutions to tackle the problem. So I'm really, Calvin, this is a raised hand from when I was asking if you deserve better or you have something to say. Okay. So I want us to get straight into our first session with Mr. Richard Troop, who is the Director of School Safety and Security. Mr. Troop, are you all set?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here. Are you hearing me?
I'm hearing you and hearing you well. Over to you.
Awesome. Let me just begin by congratulating your organization for the excellent work that you've been doing, Jayan. It's so important that young persons see themselves as agents of change, that you are able to articulate the challenges that face young persons, but also you come to the table with strategies for recommendations and solutions. And so I want to just lift my hat to the organization. I want to lift my hat to for the persons who would have taken the time out to be a part of this conversation. It is so good to see our student representative who are here. As you would have rightfully said, it's exam time. Normally they are so preoccupied in preparing for exam. I'm happy that you're balancing exam with other issues that impact directly on the lives of young persons. I want to begin from speaking from the perspective of the Ministry of Education. We have 1,010 public schools across the island with over 400,000 children attending schools. We did a perception of school safety survey in 2023, and the findings are very telling. Over 9,000 students, 9,750 students to be exact, from 331 schools participated in the survey. 55% of the students that responded felt that the safest place for them is the school that they attend. And we want to celebrate that fact. Our children come to school excited to learn. Many of our nation's children are actually making use of the opportunity made available to them for training and certification. However, the same survey would have pointed to some issues that is of grave concern and very important for this conversation we're having today. 45% of our nation's children would have indicated that they see bullying and cyberbullying every day. Children are traumatized by incidents of bullying and cyberbullying. It means that the greatest threat to our nation's children when it comes down to violence comes from children themselves, their own peers. For me, it is suggesting that there is a serious concern with the level of violence that our nation's children would have been exposed to in their homes and communities. Colleagues, hurting children will hurt other children. And so the data that was mentioned, we also need to say how prevalent corporal punishment is practiced in our homes. And how, because of the level of violence that is meted out to children in the form of discipline, how that makes children too very hungry. The data also indicated that the greatest students' perception of safety and security, their greatest threat to that perception is as they journey to and from school. 1 in every 2 female reported that they are going to be sexually harassed on their journey to and from school. 1 in every 6 male also feel that they are going to be sexually harassed. Children, especially our boys, feel very unsafe as they journey to school, and that would have contributed to the proliferation of weapons in school. It is not that they take it to school to resolve conflict at school. When you interface with our students, especially our male students, it is taken on their person because they believe that as they journey to and from school, they are going to be targeted. They are going to be robbed. They are going to the persons online that Jamaica has been a violent society for a very long time. And until we recognize that it is not normal, I mean, despite the fact that our songs industry seems to and so it is important that we have the conversation, because it is going to take the village working together to address this issue. With regards to sexual violence, and you mentioned the child, the 9-year-old that died the other day, senseless killing, but how many of our nation's children are hurting because of sexual violence, sexual exploitation? Expected to learn, but how can they learn with that the struggle that they are carrying every single day because of a society, because of families, because of communities that are hell-bent on exploiting their innocence? So I'm here because I'm excited by the topic. I'm here to listen to the other perspective, understanding that it's going to take the collective effort of the village to make a difference, not just school. You know, we can be doing significant things in school, but if children are exposed to violence within their homes and communities, our intervention at school itself would have been piecemeal. It is going to require the collective effort. It is going to require strategic intervention at the school level, but also strategic interventions at home and community. And I want to then close by suggesting that a big part of also what we need to rethink is how we parent, our nation's children, because oftentimes it is the poor parenting practices that would have contributed to the vulnerability of our nation's children, that would have also caused them not to be equipped to treat with, conflict. Conflict we will always have, but the use of violence to resolve conflict situation cannot be the way we seek to bring closure to these kinds of issues. So I'm here to share, but I'm also here to learn from the other perspective, and I'm also here to say that we need to be doing this together. It's a joint up approach, and so thank you for the invitation. And I trust that, it is going to be 2 hours well spent. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Troop. you said some very true things, hurt children, and then even linking that back to parenting styles. If you're showing a child violence, they're going to manifest it in a very similar way. And as you said, children hurt their peers. So I'm seeing a hand. Theron, you can go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
Sir before said some key points, yes, but it also bring a lot of thought in my mind.
Hmm. You can go ahead. Seems Ferran is having some difficulties. We can get back to him. Does anyone else have any thoughts on what Mr. Troop would have just shared? I remember him saying 45% of our nation's children indicated that they see bullying and cyberbullying in their day-to-day. Is that right? 45%? And when we think about
Right.
social media and what happens there and what our children are exposed to, we have to really consider how we're going to protect them in this way. Chanel, that was you?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. My computer is freezing, so I can't really raise my hand. Says when he said that parents would discipline their child, the parenting style, what way do you think that would be bad, would have a bad influence on the children? Because I understand that to some extent when some parents discipline their child, it's unnecessary, seeing that some of them beat them with brooms and anything that is nearby. I understand that is wrong. However, in some cases, some children need a little discipline. I understand that sometimes the parents can be a little excessive, but to some extent, if a child does not get at least a spanking or two, sometimes they may not know right from wrong. In the case where they won't, what's the word? What's the word? They won't see that they will be punished for some of the actions they might do. They might not see where they went wrong. They might hear when their parents said, "No, don't do this." They will go back and do the same thing. They will not understand that they have consequences. So I understand your part where you say that some disciplines are, let's say, extra, which is what I'm asking. What do you see? What type of discipline were you speaking about when you said that the way that the parents discipline their children?
Sometimes, thank you very much for that question, my sister. Can I respond? Is right?
Yes, I was even going to intercept to say, after this, please hold questions because we will have a panel discussion where you'll be able to share. So you can wrap this up and I'll follow up with you.
A good friend of mine, Professor Herbert Gale, oftentimes when he makes presentation, he would reference a point that sometimes our boy child in homes, when they're beaten by their mother, it is actually torture. He would have referenced cases of children being tied up on a tree in an ant's nest as a way to subject that child physically abused to the point where they would have to seek medical attention. Colleagues were suggesting that that is not normal, that is not okay. I'm not saying that we should not discipline our children. It is a whole. And we're seeing too often the use of physical violence being used. Now, sometimes our nation's children refuse to cry. They refuse because crying is suggest to parents that they are breaking. They refuse to cry and they will hold the pain so as to show their parent that, look here, whatever you're doing is not going to work. And so we're suggesting that we have to find new strategies to discipline our children. We have grown up in a society where corporal punishment has been very common, and that is true, but that doesn't make it right. And also, in contemporary society, many of our children who are physically beaten by parents and guardians, they are the same parents, children that will say they can't relate to a moment when they feel loved or cared for by their parents. Yes? And so to them, the relationship they have with their parents is purely one that is abusive. And that's something that must be a cause for concern, because if a child believes that to change his or her behavior, they must be beaten, then when they come to school or other setting, when that is not allowed, then how will that child conform to what would be standards within those spaces? And so it is a recognition that within parenting, we have to find new strategies of shaping behavior without resorting to physical violence. And that's what corporal punishment has become: physical violence. Executed, conducted, delivered by parent to student, to a child.
Thank you, Mr. Troop. And of course, we'll have an opportunity to delve further in the panel discussion. But I wanted us to backtrack to the sexual harassment statistics. I remember you saying that the greatest threat, or one of the greatest threats to students, is perceived notion of safety, is their journey to and from school. And I think you said, is it 1 in 2 females will be sexually harassed?
Yes, 1 in 2 females sexually harassed, and 1 in 6 males sexually harassed as their journey to and from school. It is suggesting that, commuting to and from school, walking to and from school poses serious threat to our students' safety and security.
So in this study, was it asked who exactly is harassing the male specifically?
Very interesting question. That's something we were very shocked at, very honestly, should be told. It's both gender targeting our boys. So you do have boys Yeah, I'm sorry. So I'm very, very sorry. I was muted. When we try to interrogate that particular concern, it would appear that it's both gender, male and female, sexually harassing our boys. Now, some persons might shock to say female don't harass male, but that's not true. It does happen, and in this case, boys are expected, men are expected to see it as okay, but it is not. Sometimes our boys are afraid to report it because they don't want to be perceived as if they do not appreciate this kind of advancement being made to them by a female to them because of other intent. But it does happen. So this is a two-way process. Boys and girls feel, that they are going to be being sexually harassed as they journey to and from school.
Wow, thank you, Mr. Troop. Can you remind me of the name of this study, please?
It's the National Assessment of Perception of Safety and Security in Schools. It was a joint initiative of the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information, the Ministry of National Security, and the Planning Institute of Jamaica. And this was conducted in 2023.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Troop. And I hope to hear more from you in the panel. And of course we will. So we know this will come out more. I want us to move forward with our second speaker, who is Miss Monique Hutchinson, who is the Senior Registration Officer at the CPFSA. Is she on?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. You seeing and hearing me?
We're hearing you.
All right, so I was asked to discuss certain trends regarding child abuse and intervention strategies used by the agency. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Are we seeing everyone?
Yes, I can.
All right, so just to give a brief overview of what we'll be discussing very briefly, 15 minutes, an overview of our operations. I'm a senior registration officer, as was stated. I am from the unit in the agency that receives reports regarding child abuse and children who are neglected or otherwise in care protection. So we're going to give a brief overview of the NCR's operations, share some stats we would have received regarding reports we would have received, and just highlight some of our intervention strategies. So firstly, the NCR, then OCR, was established as a provision under the Child Care and Protection Act. We started operations in 2007. In 2017, we would have merged with the then Child Development Agency to form the now Child Protection and Family Services Agency. As I stated, we receive reports about children who are being abused, physically, sexually, emotionally, children who are neglected, exploited in any other way, and children who also pose behavioral challenges. The reports we received are assessed and referred to our internal service partners as well as external, such as the Office of the Children's Advocate or different branches in the JCF. Right? And just so we're all on the same page in what we consider child abuse, it's any act or failure to act which results in the death, serious physical or emotional harm, sexual abuse, or exploitation of a child. And we'll see the different types listed here. The stats I'm going to share, some points to note about it. The figures are not final and they are subject to change. We have, well, I have stats to share up to March of this year, March 2025, but only the data up to 2019, has been cleaned and verified, right? The reports of incidents received by us are always treated as allegations, and then when referred to our investigators as well as our external service partners, they do their investigations to determine what is facts from what is not, and then take action accordingly. A feature of most of the reports we receive is the occurrence of 2 or more abuse against children. So the data is reflective of the number of reports we receive and not the number of children that are reported, right? So just to be clear, just to further simplify it, a child may be reported to us and there are multiple instances of abuse. So we discussed corporal punishment and parents using physical violence as a way to curb behavior. So that's an example. So we'll receive a report about a child posing behavioral challenges and the parent using physical abuse or using physical violence as a way to address that behavior. All right, so the first diagram I have to show is child abuse reports received from January 2023 to March of this year, right? I'm not sure if you can see the figures clearly, but based on where the graphs, there's something blocking my view here. Okay, so based on what we're seeing, one of the trends we have noted, and it would support one of the statements that Mr. Troop made in regards to the survey, where the children or the child have stated that the safest place for them is school, right? So what we notice, a trend we notice, is that our reporting figures or the reports we receive would trend down, would decrease during school breaks. So during the summer months and December when school is out, we will receive less reports. And you can see that here, July and August, it goes down. and then December it goes down as well. And then in September and January, when they go back to school, it will trend up, right? This we tend to attribute to the fact that a number of our reports come from school officials, guidance counselors, school nurses, principals. Those are where we get a number of our reports, right? Children spend most of their time either at home, at school, right? So if the persons at home are abusing them, it won't be known to anyone outside of the home unless the children attend school, or they don't attend school. The school officials notice their absence, and then concern is raised, and then checks are done. Another trend we notice regarding reporting is that it increases in May. And May, we know we're currently in it, Child's Month, right? So the increased emphasis on the Protect Your Children message it's nationwide. Every agency, everybody is conducting some activity or some public education campaign or sensitization session regarding children. So awareness is raised and persons become more vigilant and more willing to make reports to us regarding concerns that they would have observed, right? This table is showing the reports we received from January 2017 to March of this year, right? And again, we can notice the low figure in 2020, where it's 9,883. And again, that would support that children, most of our reports are coming from the schools, because we know in 2020, that would have been when, what was it? COVID-19 would have been in full effect, and persons would have been out of school, out of work, everybody's at home, right? So the figures for that year were very low. COVID-19 would have started like the late part of 2019, right? So most of 2020 persons were out of school and doing school online, right? So the teachers, the school officials would not have access to the children. And in 2021, when we would have, if you want to call it, found our footing, so to speak. So the persons were returning to their spaces. Now most schools or some schools were taking on a hybrid approach. So they were sometimes doing face-to-face, sometimes online. The reports would have increased again. All right, so incident types received by NCR from 2022 to March of this year. Our most reported incidents are incidents of children posing behavioral challenges, children otherwise in need of care and protection, and otherwise in need of care and protection, that just refers to children who, that includes children who are perhaps suicidal, persons who are subject to unfit parenting, persons who are living in undesirable circumstances, so the physical environment is not ideal. Their parents are experiencing financial challenges, or they're unemployed. Stuff like that falls under otherwise in need of care and protection, right? And then we have instances of neglect. So those are our top three. And then we have the physical, sexual, and emotional abuse, right? And as I mentioned earlier, most of these reports are not made in isolation, meaning we're not just getting reports solely about this child being physically abused. We're getting reports that this child is being physically abused, as well as their concerns regarding supervision. The child is also disobedient, or the child is coming home late, or the child is being bullied at school. And if the child is being bullied, what kind of bullying is it? Right? So is it is physical bullying? Then we'll also add the physical abuse to that. Right? So one child can have multiple instances of abuse happening to them, and that is why our figures are the way they are. Right? And reports received by parish last year, we will see that Kingston overall across the 14 parishes, and it's Kingston and St. Andrew, they would have received the most reports about children living in that parish, right? And in the Northeast region, it would be St. Anne. In the Western region, it would be St. James, and in Southern region, it would be Clarendon. And we'll see so far this year, well, as at March, it trends the same, where Kingston leads, and then in the regions, it's St. Anne, St. James, and Clarendon. Right, now just to quickly highlight some of the agency's strategies. We fall under the Ministry of Youth and Information, and we lead regarding promoting child-friendly policies and programs that help to strengthen the family. Right, we offer child protective services, which include, as I stated, intake or report taking, referrals, and this would lead to investigations being done and actions being taken that are in the best interest of the child, and lend support to the courts where necessary and the police as well to carry out whatever function in relation to that child or children. We place children in safe, nurturing family environments and provide support to foster and adoptive parents, which include training, monitoring, and offering of resources where necessary. We provide quality care for children who, for whatever reason, are brought into state care, and this refers to the persons who live in children's home and places of safety. We offer family reintegration services where, in the instance that they were removed from their families, we work to reunite them in a safe and appropriate manner. And the support is offered to those parents through training, counseling, and economic assistance so that they can maintain custody once the child is returned to them. We offer counseling and psychosocial support. This includes individual and group therapy offered to children who are affected by trauma, and the agency has, in recent time, established therapeutic centers. One such is at the Maxfield Park Children's Home. I will have another one in Windsor in St. Anne. We also offer counseling through our child and family support unit and other forms of support through that unit as well. And then we have, in instances where child victims needs to be interviewed and assisted, we, through our multi-agency partnership with SISOCA and Victim Support Unit, we do that in a caring and sensitive atmosphere so as not to re-traumatize the child with them going to every different agency, doing the interview or going through the questioning multiple times. We offer early intervention programs and community outreach by carrying out public education programs to prevent child abuse and raise awareness, and partner with schools and different organizations to promote child welfare as well as to keep track and to assist children at risk. The agency participates in several training or sensitization sessions, and this is one such example. We also participate in the Early Childhood Commission training. When the ministry has new teachers coming in, they tend to have us come in to train them as well. And the Ananda Alert, using some of the stats that, working with the JCF and using some of the stats available, they target particular schools to conduct Ananda Alert child safety sessions. Finally, the agency develops and advocates for policies that strengthen our child protection mechanisms, and we advise government on policy and legal issues regarding children. Right, and this table does highlight some of the examples of the policies we partner in or we would have developed. Right, so one, just to run through one, the National Child Liberation Policy, we partner in that execution of a counseling and reintegration as well as support non-custodial remedies. The reintegration policy for children who are leaving state care, so either they were in one of our facilities or they were in foster care, we assist with life skills, education, job placement where necessary, as well as transitional housing support. All right, so that's it for me. Thank you for listening. I'm not sure how to end this. Okay, see. Do we have any questions?
Thank you so much, Monique. And I want to remind us that we will have the panel discussion later. So we'll have the opportunity for them to ask questions and you can answer. But I learned a lot about CPFSA just now. Did we all know that CPFSA offers these services? So family reintegration, counseling, and psychosocial support. It was very informative. Yes, Tota. And even the early intervention programs. Kudos to CPFSA for doing these things. And there's something that really jumped out at me. One was the fact that the numbers were low in 2020 for the reports of child abuse incidents, that it took a pandemic for for the numbers to drop is really telling and really disturbing that it really did take a lot.
And that's just to clarify, the numbers dropping doesn't mean that abuse or anything wasn't happening. It's just that it wasn't being reported.
Exactly. So, and we already have an issue with reporting. So those, this is very telling and really shocking, even for the broad scope of incidents that were reported. So I think that generally persons have a limited view of what can be considered abuse. But I think from the table you showed, there's a broad scope of incidents that you guys receive. So from the regular, physical abuse, sexual abuse, also behavior challenges are reported. What else was reported? Neglect, also emotional abuse, which I don't think is something that's very high on person's radar, that you can abuse someone emotionally. So that was very informative for me as well. Also child labor and trafficking. I'd want to learn more about that too, about the reports that are received. But thank you so much, Monique, and
You're welcome.
Forward to your participation on the panel. So I'm not gonna dilly-dally. Miss Tiffany Case, who is the Child Diversion Officer at the Ministry of Justice, is our next presenter. Oh, I see someone with their hand raised. Shireen? Maybe not. So we can, Tiffany, you can go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'm being heard.
We can hear you.
Okay, awesome. So good afternoon, I'm Tiffany Case. I'm the Parish Child Diversion Officer for Clarendon. And this afternoon, I want you to journey with me as we talk about child diversion, what it is, what it looks like, how we treat with our children, the types of offenses that come into our program. So just journey with me for a little bit, not for very long, for a little short time. So let's go. So the Child Diversion Program is guided by the Child Diversion Act of 2018. It was designed with the best interest of Jamaican children in mind between the ages of 12 to 17 who come into conflict with the law. This program redirects these children from the criminal justice system. So child diversion is the process of implementing measures for dealing with children who are alleged, accused of, or recognized as having infringed the penal law, meaning they commit some sort of offense, without resorting to the formal judicial proceedings. The program envisions that children in conflict with the law are restored towards positive development and life outcomes by fair, transparent, and effective justice mechanisms that allow them to achieve their full potential as functional Jamaican citizens. The goal of this program is to develop and sustain a justice system in which the best interest of the child is paramount in the administration of programs and also to secure their protection while maintaining the rule of law. So the aim of the child diversion program is to rehabilitate children who have committed diversion offenses. So there's a schedule of offenses in the Child Diversion Act of 2018, and we're going to get more into that. Is to rehabilitate children. We know children make mistakes, and this is an opportunity for them to get back on the right path. It's to also reduce the number of children who are exposed to the criminal justice system and also to empower communities to re-socialize child offenders. So the child diversion process is a 7-pronged process. So the first step is that the child, somebody saying something? No, not for me. All right. So the child diversion process is a 7-pronged process. And the first step is the child is suspected of committed or has committed a diversion offense. So we use diversion offense because these are the offenses listed in the first schedule of the Child Diversion Act of 2018. And here, we just have a list here. It's not exhaustive. There is a whole 2-3 pages of offenses. So we have noisy and disorderly conduct, indecent assault, sexual intercourse with a person under 16, damage to property, unlawful wounding, simple larceny. Also, the legislation also allows for children who are brought before the court as being in need of care and protection, and a child offender and a child who is otherwise brought before the court. So for example, children with some behavioral issues to also be a part of the child diversion program. Also, it's other offenses at the judge's discretion. So the judges aren't limited to the first schedule of offenses, which are some of these offenses here on screen. So the next step of the child diversion process is that the child accepts responsibility for the offense. So in taking responsibility for an offense, it indicates a child's willingness and readiness for rehabilitation, and it is a crucial step in the diversion process. And I want to just differentiate what it means to accept responsibility as to what a guilty plea is. So a guilty plea, however, is a criminal defendant's admission to the court that they have committed an offense. All right. So the Child Diversion Act states explicitly that we use the acceptance of responsibility, and this is not a guilty plea. I just want to make that clear for the purposes of this presentation. And because child diversion is rooted in the restorative justice process, the victim gives consent for the child offender to participate in this process. After which the referral is received by the child diversion officer from the court or the police, because those are our 2 main referral source, or only referral source, because we treat with children who commit offenses. So they have the responsibility to say, yes, a crime has been committed. So we receive that referral either from the court or by the police or from the police. After that is received by the Child Diversion Office, a risk assessment is done by the Child Diversion Parish Officer. So the risk assessment looks at risks and it looks at needs. So we want to know, what are these dynamic risk and need factors? What are these dynamic factors? So these are things that can be changed, that we can intervene in. So we look at education. Is this child in school? Are they out of school? Is it that they're reading well? What is happening in school? So we look at that whole school history. We also look at the family and the living circumstances. So we look at, is the child living independently or independently of a responsible adult? Living arrangements, what's the supervision like in the household? Any indication of tension in that household? So we look at things like that when we're looking at family and the living circumstances. We also look at abuse in this risk and needs assessment. We also look at associates and lifestyle. Who are these children associating with? Who are their peers? We also look at substance misuse. We look at psychosocial issues, the issue of trauma, mental health issues. We also look at thinking and behavior, and to round it out, we look at also values and attitudes when we're looking at these children. So we take it broad. So we look at everything, single thing that could be affecting this child's behavior. So the next step is treatment planning, which is done by the child diversion officer and is approved by a child diversion committee, which consists of an officer from the Ministry of Education and Youth. So there are 13 committees. Kingston and St. Andrew have one committee. The other parishes each have one. So these committees have team leads from CPFSA sitting on those committees, somebody from the Ministry of Education and Youth, a child psychologist, somebody from the, okay, I'm seeing a question, but we'll get to it. As soon as I'm finished, I'll definitely answer. We have somebody from the Probation Aftercare Services. We have a Minister of Religion. We have a Justice of the Peace. We have somebody equipped in drug use intervention also sitting on those committees. So after the risk and needs assessment is done, a treatment plan is developed for the child, approved by the Child Diversion Committee, and then implemented. So some of our treatment options that we have here at Child Diversion are counseling, so that's individual counseling for the child. And we realize that our children do not exist in silos. They go back home, they go back to communities. So we involve the family in family therapy as well. For instance, for when children commit sexual offenses, we send them to the Women's Center of Jamaica Foundation. That's also one of our partners here at the Child Diversion, where they get sexual and reproductive health education, not just the girls, but the boys also. We have drug use intervention, which is done by the National Council on Drug Abuse. Also, we have training. If the child is out of school, has completed school, not doing anything, we ensure that we enroll them in other educational programs, and we have to big up HEART because they are our partners as well. Psychiatric care and support for our children. If there's a need, there's an educational issue, we have psychoeducational assessment that is done through the Child Diversion Program, and all of this is done free of cost. And also parental skills training, and we've partnered with our friends at the Child Protection and Family Services Agency, because children don't come with manuals, they come with parents, and a lot of times our parents don't know what to do. These behaviors are coming on, they're teenagers, they really don't know what to do, they don't have the skills, they don't have the tools. So we've partnered with the Child Protection and Family Services Agency to deliver parental skills training sessions to our parents whose children are in the Child Diversion Program. And a part of the program that I love as a part of our treatment for our children is mentorship. I love it. It's support, guidance for our young people who are on the program. And sometimes, they don't have that. So these are positive role models provided through the program that are there to assist our children. And no, I cannot be a child diversion officer without having this call to action for everybody on this platform. This is an invitation to persons here, 18 years and older. You're interested in nation building, nation development. Earlier, our host said, what would a better Jamaica look like? But we have to be a part of making Jamaica better. So I'm going to implore each and every one of you, 18 years and older, if you are ready to serve, if you are ready to be that guiding light for our children, if you are ready to take on the task to become a mentor, I'm going to ask you just to apply. The application is on the Ministry of Justice's website. Just apply. We are the change. We have to be the change that we want to see. So the final step of the process is that if the child completes their child diversion program, all legal proceedings related to the child diversion offense, they are dismissed and the child is reintegrated into the community. However, if the child does not complete or comply with the requirements of their child diversion program, he or she is returned to the referral site, whether it is the court or the police. and for legal proceedings to proceed in that regard. And that is it for me. Let me just stop sharing. Thank you so very much. Oh, so let's look at the stats. I am so sorry. Let's see what the stats look like. So far, since operationalization of the program in March 2020, so the legislation is 2018, but we started in 2020, we have had referred to the program 2,266 children. Of that number, 1,634 are males. The number of children in the program, currently in the program, getting treatment, that's 1,230. 970 of that being males, 260 being females. So far, we have had 941 children successfully completing their child diversion program. So that's 720 males. Also, we have returned to the referral site for non-compliance, non-completion of their child diversion program. We have 347 with 246 of that number being males. So if you need to contact us, our head office is at the Ministry of Justice, 61 Constant Spring Road, Kingston 10. You can see the numbers on screen, and the Clarendon office, of course, is located at the Glenmuir Business Center, shop number 24, and that's on Manchester Avenue, Mapen. So that is it for me. I'm going to stop sharing.
Tiffany, thank you so much. Very informative presentation. And I even learned a lot. And I think that even the concept of child diversion is something that we need to open up more to as a society. Because as you said, you know, children don't exist in silos. And I think that can also mean that there's so many factors that influence their behaviors and their children, and they're growing and they're learning and carving out paths for themselves. So it's important to have, you know, mechanisms in place to steer them back on the right path, if that's the case. So I learned a lot. I also have a question for everyone. Tiffany had mentioned 3 aims of the child diversion program. One starts with R, the other starts, I think the other one starts with E. And if you can type it in the chat very quickly, you win a prize. That's all. But thank you again, Tiffany. Excellent presentation. And I think we can move right into the panel discussion with Mr. Troop and Monique and Tiffany. So we're all still here, right?
Yes, still here.
Yes, still here.
I want to see somebody from Children First answer. I'll message you afterwards about your prize. But okay, let's get into the panel discussion. I know we already have some questions lined up from the discussions earlier. So let me pull those up and before I start. Shireen, I see your hand is up. I think it's been up for a while, but Ferron, you have a question before we get into the panel, because I'm sorting out the questions first so far to start with.
No, I can wait till the panel then.
Okay. All right. Give me a second, please. Okay, I think the first question is for Richard, Mr. Troop. Given the high percentage referenced regarding bullying, are there plans to further address this as an integrated and structured approach within the schools?
Absolutely. Thank you so very much for that question. Can I also make a point with regards to bullying? The incidence of bullying is 1.2% higher at the primary level than high school. So clearly the issue is not a high school challenge only, but it's also being reflected at the primary level. All boys school also have the greatest incidence of bullying and cyberbullying, followed by co-ed school and then all girls school. Then in terms of response, the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information has been very strategic in the last year and a half. We have created budget support for our high school schools in particular, to treat with issues related to medium and high risk students, and bullying is one of the focus areas. I think we would have disbursed over $140 million already to our 180 high schools. The intention is to provide resource to the schools to treat with school-based intervention. So that's one big thing that we have done. Recognition that our guidance counselors, our deans of discipline, our HFLE restorative practices have been provided to a number of our public schools. And why is this important? Resolving a conflict cannot only be somebody gets suspended, somebody get expelled. The issuing of suspension and expulsions or even detentions don't solve the problem. So when we create a space where the Ministry of Justice and its restorative justice program is impacting our school community, the intent is that we are providing skills to our teachers, to our students, to our parents, to be better equipped to treat with conflict management. The intention is that we use the RJ concept of circles to help the persons involved in a conflict situation to process what would have transpired. The intention is to restore the community, is to alleviate the harm that would have been committed, is for the parties to take responsibility. So the other thing that we're big on is to say to schools, suspension and expulsions by themselves cannot be the tool, yes, to resolve conflicts or to treat with deviant behaviors of our children. The other thing that is critical for us is a recognition that, remember we spoke earlier, 45% of our nation's children, those who were involved in the survey, would have identified bullying and cyberbullying as a major issue, meaning that the threat of their safety comes from students themselves. It's a recognition then that we have to be doing a lot more work with our students, our student leaders. You know, the reality is, you know, oftentimes our children are more reliant on the perspective of their peers. The reality is we want to empower our student leaders. We want to partner with our student leaders to be addressing the issues confronting our nation's children. We have also been saying to students that you have to take personal responsibility for your safety and security. It is sometimes the friends that our children choose. It's sometimes the choices they make. So how do we also equip our nation's children to recognize that the decisions they make, the friends they keep, will also contribute to their vulnerability to be victims or perpetrators of violence? The last thing I'd like to say is that we're also working on a number of policy documents to be treated with this issue. So for example, there are 3 policy documents we're working on. A Safe Schools policy document that is going to be really promoting pro-social ways of discipline rather than resorting to the punitive approach of suspension and expulsion. And we say to school administrators, when we suspend and expel our students, we expel and suspend them to what? And sometimes the issues that they would be suspended for, you know, does it really match the offense that would have been committed? When a child is given 10 days for what another school would have given a detention or a community service, is it fair to that child? And so the other policy document that we're working on, and this is very critical, and I'm happy because of the Child Diversion Act. Again, we're very concerned that a number of our nation's children, school-age children, would have committed offenses they would have been confined to a facility. Oftentimes, they are released before the age of 18. In the same way, as a ministry, we have a policy to treat with the reintegration of teen mothers. The ministry is also committed to develop a policy document that speaks to the reintegration of children who have been suspended, expelled, or in conflict with the law. It cannot be left up to our school administrators to use gut feeling or if they feel like. There must be guidelines within the system to support the reintegration of these children. And so I think these are some of the things that we would have been doing as a ministry. It is going to take time to see the kind of impact. What we encourage our school administrators to do is to give these initiatives the time to work. So for example, if a child is on the child diversion program, give the program the chance to work. The child would not magically be transformed in 24 hours. That's not how it works. And so we want our school system to understand that when we target medium and high-risk students for intervention, behavior change is a process. It takes time. We should look for those particular evidence of the change in the person's behavior and mindset and celebrate it, and not wait for the child to fail and then, to kind of load up the child or to say, you see, the child did not deserve that second chance. It is going to take all of us, again, working together to give our nation's children the best opportunity to do well while they are at school. We say to our school leaders and our teachers, schools perhaps represent the most important agent of socialization for our nation's children. Yes, we expect home to make a big difference, but when the homes are failing and when we see the dysfunctionality within our homes, we have to step up to the plate as an education system, not only to be looking at the quality of the exam passes, but to say, how do we create programs that is going to be looking at their re-socializing them? How are we building the kind of mindset? How are we giving attention to values and attitude? How are we focusing on character education? Because we have to look at the whole child. It is not just how well they do or don't do on exams, but at the end of the day, are we creating the kind of young person who will take their place as citizens who are committed to support nation building? So those for us will be some of the strategic areas of attention.
Thank you, Mr. Troop. And even in ending a while ago, you said something very important, that we must step up to the plate, and even outside of the education system, it does take a village to raise a child and address matters within the community that are happening because they're affecting the community at large. So we all do need to step up. Don't leave. I have another question for you, Mr. Troop. Amoy is asking, based on the statistics provided, it clearly shows that our boys, we may say, are the perpetrators of bullying. Is there any mechanism in place or will be put in place tailored just for boys to address this or other behavioral challenges?
That's an excellent question. And it's not just within school. And let me share a little bit about the challenges of boys. In a significant percentage of the Jamaican family, it is female-headed. Absence of male role models. In many of our schools, in the majority of our nation's school, the majority of our educators are female. So there is a significant vacuum for our boys. They struggle to determine who should they look to as being a positive role model in their life. Unfortunately, for many of our nation's boys, they look for role model through our RTs, who oftentimes do not understand the power that they have over the minds of our boys. And so it is good that you recognize that when we look at boys, girls, really the most at-risk group are our boys. Our boys are the ones who are dropping out of school. Our boys are the ones who are not maximizing on the educational opportunity. Our boys are the ones who are not necessarily transitioning to tertiary level training. And so it is going to require, for example, for me, I think, boys learn differently from girls. And so at the school level, we have to make sure we are tailoring the methodology, the delivery of education, of the curriculum specific to boys. That is something that we have to give target attention to. We also have to recognize that boys have different kind of skills than girls. Many of our boys excel in the creative industry. They don't pass a subject, but they can write a music on spot. You know, they are talented athletes. How do we ensure that we harness these natural talents of our boys, celebrate these natural talents of our boys, and use these natural talents as pathway for career opportunities? How do we see sports more than just the raw talent, but the industries aligned to the sporting sector, and ensure that we are creating the programs and the certification of programs that will give boys the opportunity to excel in these areas? It is a fact that our boys struggle because of they don't have the role models in their life. And so we also see, and I'm saying this now to our student leaders who might be on the call, we have to use the opportunity to engage young men, middle-aged men, older men who would have done well to have a continuous conversation with our boys while they're in school, to create opportunities for apprenticeship and mentorship for our boys. Because at the end of the day, to me, that is what is going to make the difference. How do we connect boys to individuals, male mentors? They don't have to have a degree, they don't have to be rotten rich. Persons who just understand, you know, what it is to be a male in a society that oftentimes put them down, but they would have rise above those challenges, and they're doing well for themselves. They're taking care of their family. They're taking care of themselves. How do we expose our boys to these kinds of personalities? How do we use the creative industry to be sending positive message to our young boys? Young people in general, but our young boys in particular, because oftentimes they look to the music for guidance. They look to the music for a sense of identity and purpose. So how do we ensure that the type of music that is being put out there, especially in mainstream media and social media, is the kind of music with the kind of message that is going to uplift their minds and give them the capacity to believe that, yes, they can make a difference. Yes, irrespective of their circumstances, they can make a meaningful impact and contribution to nation building.
Thank you, Mr. Troop. Farron, I'm going to allow you to say your statement, but we also have some questions for Monique and Tiffany that I'd like to get to as well. So Farron, you can go ahead. And everybody feel free to, you know, respond and talk in the comments as well in the chat.
Oh, good afternoon again. I will try to make this quick as possible because Sir said some valid points and my brain is just ticking to rebut on that. Okay. First of all, we have to look on the effects of globalization, the effects of international influence. This is also I'm should focus more for the exam. All right. So, in regards to globalization and the effects of international influence, I would say that the economy play a valid role or a vital role in regards to the development of children. Particularly, poverty is one of, I would say that poverty is a fundamental aspect or the fundamental developing force for the development of children, particularly in Jamaica. Reason being is that if when the government borrows money from the World Bank or from the International Monetary Fund to develop the country, they are not looking at the factor that the increase in interest rate, inflation, and those things, and hence it also propelled the lower class or propelled the citizens to go out there to work and to try rise above the minimum wage. Another thing is that Jamaica society is mostly focused on individuality. So the talk about community, I think it's very exaggerated and it's kind of vague because let's be realistic. It's not everyone is going to reach out to you and try to help you. For example, this is personalized. Previously in April, I had a very serious medical issue. I almost died. And when you see who would help you and those community members, it's not like that. The next thing, male, I think if we're too focused on males only, that males is a cause of bullying and those things, to really voice that concern, you have to be in the male shoes, you have to experience it as well. I don't really want to go too much in that because I don't want to jeopardize anything, but what I saw in schools, what I experienced in school, females also play a part. They might not do it physically, but word of mouth, how they propel and motivate the males. The males are, for example, the males trying to prove their point to a particular girl to get her approval or to try to be into a relationship or situationship with them. That also propelled. So I think the concept of male, this male, that it's very exaggerated in society. In society, majority of the teachers are females. Leaders now, currently in the 21st century, is being females. The majority of population in university is females. So males are very marginalized in society, and I think that is what caused males to behave a certain way. So the traditional factor that we are looking at about males, I think we need to move from that aspect now and think in the current era. Furthermore, music, I think music is also exaggerated as well. Because at the end of the day, God gave us choice. The community aspect is also exaggerated as well. God gave us choice. Because I don't want to be specific, but I also experienced violence. I saw massive amount of blood. Am I violent? Do I go on the road, stab up children? Do I go on the road shooting and behaving a certain way? No, choice play a key factor. It play a key factor both socially and also economically. So within these factors, we all have to think about the sociological imagination. Is it not just our individual choices that shape us, but also how the government do their international relationships and their regional integration, all of those economic factors and borrowing and increase in poverty.
Thank you, Farron. Very valid insights. You can continue the conversation in the chat. I have a question for Tiffany from Sitota. So how does the child diversion program deal with social inertia? So resistance to the better experience they're being offered. And when a child drops out or does not complete the program, are you persistent with them or do you apply a different strategy to help them?
Thank you for that question. Absolutely. We try different strategies with the children before we return them to the referral source. So if they're non-compliant, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing on the program, absolutely, we take 6 months before we return those children because we're employing different strategies. before we return them to the referral source.
Thanks, Tiffany. And I have some more, just kind of searching through the chat. Okay, from Chanel. In the case of the rehabilitation process, has there been any violent outbursts? And if so, what is done to stop or prevent it from happening?
All right, so far in the child diversion program, we haven't had any incidents of violent outbursts, knock on wood, and we hope that it will never happen. However, our program is designed to treat with trauma, to treat with anger management, to treat with all of those things. So we have our psychologists, psychiatrists, all the mental health support that these children will need to treat with the behaviors that they are displaying or might have displayed, but we haven't had any of those in the past. As social workers, we have strategies in place to deal with those things in office. So, you know, we're with the restorative, we're also a part of restorative justice branch within the Ministry of Justice, the social justice division. So we know how to treat with that conflict. As social workers is where we put our desk, is where children sit, that sort of thing. And they come into a nice, comfortable environment. And we're also trauma informed when we're treating with our children, so as to not re-traumatize them. So we have not had those outbursts, but if they are those outbursts, we as professionals, we have the tools right here to treat with those things. And if in the past those children did display those behaviors, we do have all the tools and strategies here within the program, whatever it is, for those children to be better, to manage emotions, that sort of thing.
Thanks, Tiffany. We have some more questions for you. I'm seeing Michaelia's hand up. You can go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My question is directed to so Mr. Troop said. I'm just seeking clarification or a little guidance on it. He mentioned something where when it comes to the male boys in terms of practicality with, you know, the exploration of music and sports and so forth. But my question comes in, we women oftentimes have to broaden our horizon and come out of our own comfort zone to a certain degree. So the men able to broaden their horizon as well and not limit to just music and sports all the time. And I was also thinking along the lines of I recognize lately since I've been on the journey of trying to do a little bit more in-depth research on the Jamaican men experience. And quite a lot of experience is very interesting to me. I'm still working on it. It's a little project of mine because I really want in society today, I feel like we need to have a balance when it comes to our boys and our men, in the sense where we tend to focus a lot on the negative side of things, and still good young men and older men, baby boys, whomever, that's the gender of on a whole, who are really trying their best to make a difference in our country and really trying to be the best brother, father, uncle, cousin, you name it. So I've been trying my best to even bring some light to them whilst also trying to help those who are struggling. And I've recognized that there is something missing in our society when it comes to them. But based on what Mr. Troop said, I'm just wondering if we're not borderline putting them in a box, if they're not just more than always doing sports and music or so forth. So that's where I'm seeking a little clarification to grab my thought process.
Thanks, Michaelia. Mr. Troop, is it possible for you to type a response, please, to Michaelia? Because I don't want to cut Tiffany's little segment. Because I have some more questions for her. So thank you so much. And thanks, Michaelia. So Tiffany again, also from Chanel, I believe. Okay, so Chanel asks if the child has some sort of mental disability that caused them to end up in rehabilitation, what steps are taken during rehabilitation, I guess, to navigate their mental disability?
Okay, I'm not quite clear on the question, but I'm going to try my best to answer. The child has a disability that because of that disability, they're in the program, or while they're in the program, we realize that this child has and what sort of disability are we talking about? Are we talking about an intellectual disability? So I would need some clarity to that as well. Are we talking about somebody who has some physical disability? I would need some clarity.
So I want
Some mental disability.
Intellectual.
yeah.
So while they're in the program, we find out that they have some mental health challenges. Chanel? Just for clarity.
Yes, miss. Sorry, my computer is acting up today.
Okay, so as I would have expressed, while children are in the program and we realize that they have some mental health challenges that is treated with through our psychologists and our psychiatrists. And the families also get the support that they need as well. So is it that we need to sign them up for the Jamaica Council for Persons Living with Disability? Is that something that we need to explore so that this family can get the support that they need? But as I said, or psychologists or trained mental health service providers, so counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists, they're there and they offer the support to these children. Psychiatric care and support, psychotherapy, counseling, whatever this child may need to navigate the space. Those services are offered here at the Child Diversion Program, and there are other things that we can do to give a little more support to the family, in addition to registering them for the council, Jamaica Council for Persons Living with Disability, to see what assistance the family can get from that agency at the Ministry of Labor. We also do parental skills training because it's challenging. You have this child living with this mental health condition. How do we navigate that? And that's where our partners at the Child Protection and Family Services Agency comes in. That's where the family therapy comes in to give the children and also their families the support that they need. I hope that answers your question, Chanel.
It does. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And one more question from Mrs. Pius Allen. Hoping I'm pronouncing that right. She's asking Tiffany, is there an established scale to define and measure the extent of the offenses listed? For example, what is truly deemed as noisy conduct?
Oh, yes, we use, all right. So I said that before, that our main referral source is the police or the court. They can determine whether a crime has been committed. In the case of noisy and disorderly conduct, it's under the Towns and Communities Act. Here in Jamaica, section 11 of that piece of legislation. So it's for the police to determine what happened and what would cause this to be an offense. So yes, the court or the police, they're the ones who can say, yes, this offense really did take place. Because remember, our goal is to treat with children who would have committed offenses or are suspected of committing offenses. So there are legislation. So just like the sexual intercourse with a person under 16, we use the Sexual Offences Act to say, did this offense happen, taking statements, the police creating that prima facie case, that sort of thing, before children are sent into a child diversion program. The police officers have to do their due diligence to create a prima facie case.
Okay, thanks, Tiffany. And one more question that just came in from Sitota again. She's asking about the mentorship program. So she's asking how to submit the application because she's not seeing a way to do so on the website.
Awesome, 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 awesome sauce. I'm so excited when young people want to get involved, people want to get involved in mentorship. Listen, I love mentorship, keeping it real with y'all. I love it because I think it's that driving force that will change young people's lives. And if I can share so quickly, I have children that said to me, Miss, you know, say our parents don't talk to us. Miss, you know, me not have no positive role model. Miss, I did this and my parent only talk to me when I do something bad or something happen at school and teachers have to be called in. So you see, when they get the support of the mentors, and our children always talk about it, especially when they go back before the court, when they complete the programs, or, you know, they're just talking about generally the program and how it was for them. Mentorship is always top on their list to say, you know, this person helped me to navigate this situation, to navigate this space, and it was so helpful. I could call on this person and stuff like that. And it's so important that we have mentors in our space. So if you want to submit an application, you can be a mentor in the parish that you reside. I am going to share again, if you just permit me, where you can submit your application. So right here, so child diversion at moj.gov.jm, child diversion at moj.gov.jm. So that's where you can submit your application. You can listen out for a call from us. So thank you so much for that. And anybody else who wants to submit, you can just send your
Repeat that,
applications there.
please.
Yes.
Application for mentorship?
Yes, your application for mentorship. It's on the Ministry of Justice's website. You can just type in mentorship application and it should come up.
All right.
In your search.
So you are able to mentor these young people, or
you will be the mentor once you apply.
Oh.
If you apply and you're properly vetted, you will be the mentor.
Okay, all
For
right.
these young persons, giving them the guidance and the support that they need to navigate this challenging space.
All right, because I'm a new social worker, so I need a little build up. So thank you, my friend.
You see, I love this partnership and us just bringing people together. Absolutely, no problem at all. So you can just send your application there, child diversion at moj.gov.jm.
All right, thank you.
You are most welcome.
Thanks, Stephanie. I hope more of us are interested in mentorship as well. Let me see. Thanks, Stephanie. I want to move on to Monique. I see she has a question, but she would have answered in the chat, but just so that everyone can see, especially if you kind of jumped off and came back on, or you just came on. A question was asked to Monique: what is the current status of the child protection early warning system? Monique said, currently they are holding stakeholder consultations. So yes, I also saw another question, not sure where it went, to all the panelists, but I think I saw Chanel, your hand was up and you took it down. Or am I not?
Yeah, I was asking, do I have to be 18? I'm almost 18.
You're almost 18. So you can submit your application just the same. Since you say you're almost there, and we'll contact you as soon as you get to 18. But if once you're below the age of 18, still in school, I'll implore you, Mr. Troop, you can back me up on this one. If your school has peer mentorship programs in school, to get involved in that as well.
And just a quick question, Tiffany. Do the mentors receive training, especially
Absolutely.
like the young age?
Absolutely. The mentors receive training, background checks are done, because we want to know who are treating with our children, and we have to ensure that these persons are fit and proper, and we also give them the necessary skills that they'll need throughout the mentorship process. Definitely, training is provided by the Ministry of Justice.
Great, thank you.
You are most welcome.
Thanks, Tiffany. And I see some conversations happening in the chat, and I love to see it. I'm not seeing any other questions at this time. Oh, Farron, you can go ahead.
Oh, okay. Good afternoon again.
general question, anyone can answer. I realize that the system have this thing in place that anything regarding to the child going to school, registering and those stuff, the system insists that you have a parent to come and do the process. Now, based on my experience, I did not have any parent to come and do that process for me. So I have to run up and down and went to ministry and do all of those things. So for future references, for the other children out there like me that don't have anyone to go and do that run up and down with or for, how can we navigate this situation? Because if you live in a toxic environment and then the system insists you have to wait until you're 18 to do this, you have to have a parent to do that. But in reality, you don't have anyone to do that for you. How will a child with my experience go about that?
Mr. Ferran, we speak to parent or guardian or caregiver. And if it is not the biological parents of the child, the biological parents would have to provide something in writing to the school that Mr. Ferran has been given the authority to act on behalf of this child. It cannot be that a child just walk off the road and register for particular programs. It's important that somebody who is an adult would take the lead where that is concerned. Now, any school would not necessarily say it must be the biological parent, but who represent the child must come with the authority to so do. Yeah, and I think all of our schools, that would have been the approach taken, because we do understand many times children would have lost not one but both parents to violence or other issues. But we're also suggesting that that child can't be on his or her own. And if that child is on his or her own, while we commend the child, we are saying that that is not the kind of environment, a situation that is in the best interest of the child. And so we definitely ask for an adult to be a part of that process.
And just to add, from our agency's standpoint or angle, we provide intervention in that regard. So I mentioned we have different units within our agency that provide support, not to the family, but specifically to the child. So if you are on your own, either in the instance where you don't have the support, you have the parents, you're living with your parents, but you don't have the support, they're not interested in sending you to school, they don't want to send you to school, you can reach out to us and we provide the intervention to assist with schooling in any way that we can.
Thanks, Monique. Thanks, Richard. And on that note, I want to ask all of you, Monique, Richard, Tiffany, how to report cases of child abuse or reports of children in needing intervention at your respective agencies, just so that we all know. So I'm going to start with Richard.
Generally,
Ashroop, you're breaking up.
I'm sorry.
Hi. Okay.
Are you hearing me?
I'm hearing you.
No? I make the point that generally such a matter of guidance. You're not hearing me?
If it does not work.
I will type. Let me type. Okay?
I can type. I can move on to Monique.
All right, so I'm going to just share my screen real quick so that it's easier for persons to view. Right, so we have several avenues by which we can report child abuse to us, the CPFSA. You can send via the information via email and the email is here, report@childprotection.gov.jm. You can contact us via WhatsApp message at 878-2882, or you can call 211. You can call 888-PROTECT. You can call the other number listed here, 908-2132, sorry. You can also visit, we have a parish office right across the island, all 14 parishes. You can visit any one of those offices and make a report to the registration officer there. All right, so I'm going to leave this up for about 5 seconds so you guys can see it. All right.
Thanks, Monique. Tiffany?
So currently we take our referrals from the police or from the court. So if you know a child who is in need of care and protection, has some behavioral issues, I will urge you to call the number 211 and report it to the Child Protection Family Services Agency. Oftentimes it is routed to the Child Diversion Office. You can always visit the police station. You can always go to the court and take out some sort of application there to let them know that this is happening. This child needs some support. In the cases of where it's an offense, it's the police station.
Thanks, Tiffany.
You're
And thank you all for, spending 2 hours with us. Tiffany, Richard, Monique, we really, really appreciate it. We have some insight that we didn't have before, and I think now we can really appreciate what's going on to address child violence and instances of violence out here. So if everyone can clap them, please. Thank you. And thank you to all of you who came out and stayed on, became late and stayed on. Thank you so much. Now, though, I want to move on to our call to action, because as I said before, this is a space for us to make suggestions and decide how we can move forward to address violence. And I want to introduce Natalia Burton, who is our youth advocate as well as our project assistant. She will be sharing our call to action right now.
Yes, hello everyone, and thank you for that introduction, Kayla. I'm just gonna go ahead and share my screen. Okay. So yes, as Kayla mentioned, I'm Natalia. I'm currently serving as the project assistant and a youth advocate here at JAN, and I'll be presenting the call to action, which has some recommendations to address violence against youth and children, right? So JAN recently, with the support from the Canada Fund for Local Initiatives, was able to consult several youth from across the island through focus groups and other sessions. And through consulting with them, we were able to craft 10 recommendations that youth really believe that stakeholders need to employ to actually meaningfully address the pervasive issue of violence against our youth. So let's just dive right in and get into all 10. So the first one would really be promoting conflict resolution and mediation programs within schools and communities to effectively address some of the root causes of violence in our schools. So on Mr. Troop's mention of bullying, this would look like just having the necessary programs in place to equip students with the soft skills and the tools needed to address disputes as they arise. So through the implementation of such things in schools, we would see a decrease in bullying and also violence that is inflicted by students on students. The second one includes strengthening mental health support through the provision of accessible and youth-friendly mental health services. So this can also look like increasing the number of trained psychologists and counselors that are able to provide mental health support to young persons who are affected by violence. And this could also include having national awareness campaigns that really talk about mental health and the implications of youth who are in situations where they are witnessing violence and they're being affected by violence in their day-to-day. When we look at the third recommendation that was posited by youth, this is reform in school policies and practice. So we really want to see where we implement things such as teacher training on emotional intelligence and positive discipline. So it's just about how these teachers relate to students, how they are disciplining them, and just to ensure that they are being treated with an amount of care and consideration. This also entails reforming discriminatory policies such as the school grooming policy that can unintentionally kind of make students targets for bullying, and it can also kind of just impact self-esteem and perpetuate violence in those environments. This also looks like adopting restorative justice and establishing peer mentorship programs to really promote certain values such as empathy, right? The fourth one is improving community and parental engagement. So this is a very important one because, you know, it's not just about youth in this space, it's also about persons around our children and youth. So this would look like facilitating parenting workshops, which really focuses on teaching them conflict resolution as well and emotional intelligence so that they are able to better relate to their children. We see less incidences of domestic violence and things of the sort. This can also entail stuff like sports for and development initiatives, as well as mentorship programs to give young persons access to positive role models. So, you know, even in the prior discussion, someone was saying, oh, they don't have parents to run up and down with them, or, you know, sometimes it's like the parents don't talk to them. So this would be a good opportunity to rope in the community as well as work with parents where they are willing to be engaged in that manner. The fifth recommendation was really the role of media and addressing its role in our perception of violence, right? So we really need to see the promotion of nonviolent messages and role models in the entertainment sector. And we also need to see where more stakeholders actually regulate such violent content that is being spread on social media through various policy changes, and as well strengthening parents, their involvement and the guidance that they provide to their children. The sixth one is enhancing reporting and the law. So this can look like implementing various confidential reporting mechanisms, and also it looks like fostering positive relations between law enforcement and citizens. And this can be achieved through stuff like having members of law enforcement undergo sensitivity training, just so that they're able to maintain rapport with and just give persons a good customer service experience when persons are interacting with members in law enforcement, and also just through implementing anti-corruption mechanisms to build trust so that we have confidence in the persons who are serving us in that manner. The seventh call to action had to do with expanding youth rehabilitation and restorative justice programs. So this looks like, for example, strengthening the child diversion program and also increasing funding for other rehabilitative programs so that we are able to focus on, you know, diverting as much people as possible from the formal justice system so that we're able to focus on rehabilitation as well as just breaking cycles of violence, which, you know, should be the prime goal when we consider minors and just how influence and things out of their immediate control affect, you know, how they act as minors. When we look at the eighth call to action, this is investing in violence prevention, and this relates to family and gender-based violence. So with the aid of public awareness campaigns about the detrimental effects of such violence and continued strengthening of law enforcement responses, we can really see where, you know, if this is implemented, we will have better responses to gender-based violence and just general violence that we see in our day-to-day. The ninth call to action saw for economic empowerment of youth. This just looks like investing in job creation and expansion of opportunities and training for young persons so that they are able to be financially literate, they're able to support themselves, and so that they, they have less tendency to resort to violent means, criminal activities, things like theft. So we really just want to cultivate a culture of self-sufficiency among our youth. So if stakeholders could get on board with that, that would be absolutely great. And the last CTA that I want to highlight is more of a cultural thing. So engaging various religious institutions. So, we need to encourage the churches and other institutions of religion to provide positive interventions for at-risk youth. We need to see greater promotion of messages of peace and nonviolence so that, they are able to catch certain things early because, they are one of the close agents of socialization. So young persons, they go to church with their families. So if greater programs and initiatives are there for youth, that would definitely help see a reduction in violence as well. So those are the 10 CTAs that were identified by youth. And, I am so glad that through this discussion, we have all kind of touched on these things in one way or another. We agree that, yes, these things are very pressing, they're prominent, and, these are some of the things that we need to do, but it's less about talk and it's more about action. So this is just me reminding everyone that, not only do we have to say that, yes, this is needed, but as key stakeholders, we need to be the change and we actually need to put these things into action and to implement them into the status quo. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and that's it from me. So handing over to Kayla.
Thank you so much, Natalia. Such strong recommendations that really do need to be looked at and implemented and considered if we really want to put, our plan into action regarding children. So once again, thank you, everyone. We've reached the end of the session. Thank you for sticking with us. I'm hoping that, you learned something, that this has probably changed your view of the need for, support and mechanisms to be put in place to address child violence. I'm really hoping that this was an edifying session for you all. And thank you to our presenters, Richard, Tiffany, Monique. We appreciate you so, so, so much. Thank you. And everyone have a good day. Bye.
Everyone.